about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So we got a busy show, but before we begin, I just have to announce my baby boy, I mean, he's the older of the two, is now engaged. Now, even though I've spoken about his fiancée and how awesome she is before the announcement was official this weekend. And so I posted pictures and, oh, my baby, to marry off your baby is, it's a blessing. But interestingly, the in-law relationship is a tough one. And I have seen mother-in-laws and father-in-laws go bad, and they're good people. But once they're in that in-law role, they mess up, and they mess up bad. And nobody teaches people how to be a good in-law, all right? You might look at your in-laws, or you might think to yourself, well, I'll just do this, I'll do this. And the dynamics of the relationship, if you don't understand that, you can really screw up, and then you might never see your grandkids again. So you got to really handle the in-law part of this relationship very delicately. Luckily, my daughter-in-law, or soon-to-be daughter-in-law, Chelsea, is awesome. Love her to death. But I had conversations with her early on. One, opening up that line of communication, saying, if ever I become anywhere near, follow that road to the mother-in-law from hell, for the love of God, you stop me in my tracks, because I don't want to make that mistake. Number two is, as much as I say, welcome to the family, I realize that this is now your family, all right? And I'm here auxiliary, your other families there auxiliary, and that you guys are the center. You guys are the center nucleus. So however you want to do Christmas or whatever, this is you. You guys get to set up your own, because unfortunately a lot of people get absorbed or amoeba phagocytized into the other family. They get no voice, they get no choices, and then there's fighting. Why do we have mother-in-law and father-in-law issues? So with father-in-laws, it's a little tricky if you have a daughter, because now your daughter is dating somebody who is sleeping with your daughter. Not easy. And there is always going to be that, okay, what are you doing to my daughter? You're going on your honeymoon? That's not easy. Yeah, and luckily I'm not a dad, but if I was a dad that I had a daughter, and now there's, a guy she's sleeping with, that would not be easy. So I get that. And also, that dad is alpha. So how do you have another alpha? Not easy. Now, I'm on the mom side of things, and where mother-in-laws go wrong is, one, when their kids are the only thing that's going on in their lives. Now, my kids are my life. I mean, my kids, they're your babies. But I have to understand that I have to share. And I also, luckily I'm busy and I have other things in my life. But when moms, all they have are their babies, they then look at the new wife as somebody taking away their baby from them. Okay. In my case, I'm like, have them, please. Okay. Good. One down, one to go. Take them and flee. Thank you. Thank you. But there's a lot of moms that go, well, you're taking away my baby. No, they're not taking away your baby. And then moms can be competitive. They're like, but I'm his favorite woman. Listen, my son looked at me, both of my boys looked at me like I was a goddess, when I was younger. And then the teenage years came, and they're like, oh, God, Mom, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't even want to listen to you. Okay, Mom, just kind of, do your thing. Make me my sandwich. But then just kind of, keep your opinion to yourselves. So I already got trained by my boys that I am very important to them. They love me to death. But, I am not going to be the only woman in their lives, and I don't want to be. I don't want to be the only woman in their lives. They need to get married, have babies, etc. But there's other women that really get jealous. They get really competitive. You don't want your son to find love and be happy, but there's mother-in-laws that sadly are that way. And like I said, a very, very big mistake I commonly see is mother-in-laws or father-in-laws say, look, you are a part of our family. This is how we do things. No, because they're going to say, you know what, then we're going to get away. Because they want to have their traditions. They want to start their, they're the new nucleus. And, they will come to you for advice. In fact, it's amazing. She's already, she'll ask me things. about, the ring and, when did I wear it? When did I, because I got my engagement ring and then I had to immediately pin it to my scrubs because you can't do surgery. You can't deliver babies with an engagement ring. It was a small, we had a very, low budget. So it was a small rock, but it was, to me, huge and, sticking out on and then when I had the babies, I didn't want it to scratch the babies. And so I didn't wear my engagement ring. I got the engagement ring. I wore it during certain occasions and then I threw it in a safe. It's still in a safe. Because again, I'm also not really good with jewelry. But anyway, so I'm already getting asked like advice about things, medical advice, things like that, and don't go like I do with my sons. Oh, my baby still loves his mama. My baby's asking me for knowledge. I get to still teach. I mean, don't make a big thing about it. Just offer advice and do it like a friend. Now, I speak to a lot of my friends who are now soon to be father-in-laws. I have more father-in-law friends than mother-in-law friends. And they're like, I don't need to work to get them to like me. They better work for me to like them. Okay, I get that, but they're not going to like you. Okay, I like you a little less with that attitude. No, you need to understand that they could take you or leave you. And if you want access and a closeness to the babies, then you can't be a jerk because nobody wants to be around a jerk. Another thing, never, ever do that in-laws do, is they tell their child, they talk crap about the person that they're about to marry. And then they start fights. You need to tell her to do this. You need to tell him to do this. You need to tell. And then the couples fight. Well, the in-law daughter or son is going to be like, wait a second. So if we weren't around your parents, this fight would have never happened? Well, then let's stay away from your parents. Then there's no fight. I just want everyone to like me. And if they're going to be mad at me for something that I have no control over, I'm going to want to distance myself so there's no more arguments. Because the last thing a newly married couple wants are fights. Now, there are in-laws that just don't want the marriage to happen. So they're going to do all this on purpose. They're going to try to scare that daughter-in-law or son-in-law away. Well, the problem with that is love is thicker than water, right? And it's thicker than breast milk. So if those two people want to be together, they're going to remember every single thing that you tried to do to mess up their union. So just don't do any of that. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away. Hey guys, it's Dr. Dahlia. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's fantasy football pocket guides for beginners. Don't be left out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shots Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shots Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
Show, 1-877-Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So a lot of us are battling memory issues. My memory used to be so good. I mean, for me to get through medical school like I did, you had to learn a lot. And I remember at some point my brain just couldn't take anymore. And the more I learned, the more other stuff seemed to fall out. But I got through it, passed all my boards, continue to pass my boards, and I'm grateful. But my brain is not like the way it was in my 20s. And I blame COVID. I blame age, because I'm not in my 20s anymore. Thank God no drugs and nothing like that. But I really think for me, it was COVID. But there's a lot of people that don't realize that they could be making their memory worse by medications that they take. And Health Magazine does a really nice piece on 7 common medications that cause memory loss. And we've spoken about these before, but we're going to do it again today. So a very common medication that has been linked to memory loss are your benzodiazepines. So for those of you who take Xanax or Valium or Restoril or Ativan, they end in PAM. So lorazepam, alprazolam, diazepam, temazepam, ending in AM. These medications have been known to affect memory function. They cause mild short-term memory loss, but there has been research looking at long-term use increasing your risk of dementia. So for those of you that use that to sleep, use that for muscle aches, use it for anxiety and depression, you might want to talk to your medical provider about something that might be a little safer. Now, anti-seizure medication, very, very well known to cause memory issues. Lamictal, Topamax, Tegretol, Vimpat, Keppra. The problem is, if you need the brain activity calmed so you don't get a seizure in a way, that's kind of how they act, it's more dangerous to have a seizure. So never go off your anti-seizure medications. However, I bring this up because a lot of you are taking Topamax for weight loss or taking Topamax for migraines. Now, it's very effective in that, but some of you take it long term. That is in the class of anti-seizure medication. So you might want to talk to your medical provider about that. Something that is an obvious one that, we all should not be on these long term, but sadly some people are the opioids. If you take OxyContin, Vicodin, MS-Contin, Percocet, Dilaudid, long term, you do have a higher risk of memory loss. Short term, I understand when there's short term need. For long term, I understand also for those people who are really, really in pain, but for those people taking it for fun, or to get high, or to just make work tolerable, or to deal with arthritis and other things that might be able to be addressed with a knee replacement or injection or something like that, you might want to talk to your medical provider and rethink this. They interfere with the hippocampus, and the hippocampus is part of the brain that's involved in memory and learning. Now, health talks about using anti-inflammatories like NSAIDs. The problem with that is, the long-term anti-inflammatories can affect your kidneys, can affect your heart, can affect your stomach lining. Also in the article, they say to consider anticonvulsants, muscle relaxers. Well, we just talked about some of those that they cause memory loss too. So you're kind of stuck. But if you're in pain doesn't help you put things to memory either. So it's a delicate balance, delicate choreography. Talk to your medical provider about that. Medications we don't use a lot of, but still I do notice a lot of people take these, are the tricyclic antidepressants. The tricyclic antidepressants we used to use for depression, but people would overdose on them. And they came out with safer medications in the SSRI family. However, a lot of you are taking nortriptyline or amitriptyline, Elavil, Pamelor, Selinor, Tufrenil. These are things that sadly could also affect your memory. So make sure you talk to your medical provider about that. Now, this is where you and I could be in trouble. Okay? When I was having some sleeping issues after the babies and things like that, I would go to Tylenol PM. Well, that has Benadryl, diphenhydramine. Many of us are taking antihistamines on a regular basis. And these antihistamines do cause memory loss. So for those of you who take promethazine or Phenergan, also for nausea, Dramamine, chlortrimeton or chlorpheniramine, Benadryl, diphenhydramine, Zyrtec, Allegra, Claritin, these all can cause memory loss. And now, the Zyrtec, Allegra, and Claritin have less memory loss risk, we're hearing, than the other ones, like your Benadryl, chlortrimeton, Dramamine, Phenergan. Just don't take these long term. And sadly, many of you take, antihistamines every day just so you're not sneezing. I only take them when I need to or during allergy season. I talked to you about how my doctor will give me a Kenalog shot or we'll start a little bit of Flonase so I can build up the nasal steroids so my nose doesn't sneeze. 2 weeks later, there are other options, but taking daily antihistamines could affect your memory. And yeah, okay, I was just thinking, duh, yeah, that was no joke. Also, because people are struggling to sleep, you aren't putting things in memory. If you're using a medication like diphenhydramine to knock you out to sleep, that's not a natural sleep for you. So you might not be putting things to memory. Now, you'll still remember, things from the day before. But if you're trying to really cement short-term memory, you have to be careful about how you're sleeping, which brings us to category number 6, your sleeping pills. Ambien is notorious for being linked to sleep loss. And a 2023 study said that if you are using Lunesta, Sonata, Ambien, there's an increased risk of dementia in people who are white. Another study from 2021, according to Health.com, said that sleeping pills can negatively impact prospective memory or the ability to remember to do something in the future. Now, they do suggest melatonin, but I don't think long-term melatonin is safe either. So if you're struggling to sleep, and remember, we want you to be able to sleep, because if you can't sleep, you can't put things to memory. But if you're taking these medications every day, that's going to be an issue. Now, the anticholinergic drugs are also a biggie. So for those of you taking medications like Sanctura, Ditropan, Enablex, Vesicare, Detrol, these are medications that are very helpful for overactive bladder. The last thing you want to do is giggle or sneeze or cough or try to go to a vet, not make it to the bathroom. And for stress and urge incontinence, stress incontinence is where you laugh or giggle and increase your Valsalva and then you accidentally pee. Whereas urge incontinence is once your bladder feels full, it just starts to empty and you can't hold it. So this is why us older women, will go to the bathroom preventatively. So like with Disneyland, I'll usually run around the park until I have to go, but I've learned that I might want to, in case I can't find a bathroom, go just in case. So a lot of us will go just in case. You're like, gosh, what's wrong with you? Do you have diabetes? No, I just don't want to pee if I get full. Now, luckily, I don't have urge incontinence, but if you do, that could be pretty detrimental. But these medications are anticholinergics, and anticholinergics can increase the risk of dementia. So there are some other medications that do help. There's also pelvic floor strengthening exercises and Kegels and things like that. But, these, it's not easy because I know many of you looked at these medications and say, well, I take at least 2 of them. If that's the case, you want to talk to your medical provider because our memory to try to, get that back, I wish, and I understand I'm never going to have the same thinking as I did in my 20s. But I just don't want to be at the point where I really, really lose, control over what I'm able to do. I don't want to get dementia. And sadly, that's in the family. Now, in our family, we have multi-infarct vascular dementia. So people who had cholesterol, diabetes, ended up losing a lot of their brain volume and brain function. Could have also been Alzheimer's, but I think many of it was the mini strokes. So how to improve your memory is don't take any of those medications long term if you don't have to. Make sure you try to get good sleep. Make sure you eat healthy, balanced diet, get your vegetables in, and good vegetables, okay? Not just iceberg lettuce. Get vegetables that have really good polyphenols, really good coloring to them. And, not GMO'd, but, like cabbages, beetroot, things like that. Those help. Also, avoid alcohol. Alcohol is not good. So if you are drinking alcohol on a regular basis, and I know drinking wine and trying to relax with wine is supposed to, be a thing that helps you with your daily routine, it messes with your sleep and it can also mess with your brain. And one thing I got to work on is low sugar. I got to cut the sugar in my diet because sugar hurts your memory. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away. Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOCDALI. So you want to know what is a good Christmas Hanukkah present? Giving your family a trip with a cruise that you set up for this spring, summer. I got to tell you, the last cruise we took was on Norwegian Cruise Line. And I've been on multiple different cruise ships, and what I really, really liked, because I work and I'm a workaholic, they had fantastic Wi-Fi. Their rooms were spacious. The food was fantastic, and the entertainment was so good. My kids have been asking. They're like, let's do another cruise. Let's do another cruise. In fact, my nephew goes, Annie, I want to go on a cruise with you guys. And so we're actually looking into that. But when is the best time to set that up? Now there are huge Black Friday cruise deals. And so here to tell us the latest and the greatest is editor-in-chief of Cruise Critic, Colleen McDaniel. Colleen, I am so glad you're joining us today. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Oh, my God, I love it. And we definitely could use some tips because cruising, to me, is one of my favorite ways to travel because it's all-inclusive. You got the food, you got the entertainment, you got and the excursions are amazing. So talk to us about why you think that these are a great option for families and groups of families traveling together.
You don't even need to talk to me. You just nailed it all. What we hear from cruisers on Cruise Critic is that families really appreciate that cruising offers tremendous variety and value. As you said, pricing is more inclusive, especially when you compare it with a similar land-based vacation. It's simply the best value for your vacation dollar. And let's face it, planning a family vacation is hard. But planning a cruise is easy and stress-free. So once you're on board, you unpack once, and then you wake up in a new bucket list destination every day. And there's so many cruise options. For example, Norwegian Cruise Line offers voyages to over 350 destinations around the world.
So, yeah, like the Caribbean, Europe. Yeah, talk to us about those destinations.
So some of the hot destinations for 2026 that we're seeing at Cruise Critic are indeed the Caribbean and the Bahamas. And in 2026, NCL will have 18 cruise ships sailing in the Caribbean and the Bahamas, including Norwegian Luna, which is making its debut next spring.
Oh, Cruising I love the new ship.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yes.
It's absolutely beautiful. And there's something about being on a new ship, that everything is fresh and there's that new ship smell. Plus, you get to try out new shows, which might not have shown up on any other cruise ship. You get to experience dining experiences. It's brand new. It's such a great way to cruise.
And now's the best time to buy because there's Black Friday deals. Talk to us about what travelers can, jump on.
Well, Black Friday has really become a great time to book. In fact, some of the best deals of the year are going on right now. NCL launched its biggest sale of the year, offering 50% off all of its cruises. Plus, its free at sea package, which is backed by popular demand. And amenities for this package come in at over a $2,000 savings. Perks include things like free specialty dining, shore excursion credit, and Wi-Fi, and much more. And if you pay attention throughout the holidays, you might see some surprise bonuses popping up, like free prepaid gratuities or up to $1,000 in onboard credit.
That's huge. And I got it. Onboard credit Norwegian gave us before. That was, that was fantastic. Oh, and then the shopping. I mean, there's just so much to do on these ships. It's like its own little city. Yeah, it's and then you could for excursions and all that. It's so there's lots of cruise offerings and like you said, there's going to be more coming up. Talk to us about what some of those could be.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we're seeing is that private destinations are becoming increasingly popular. And one that we're really excited about is Norwegian's Great Stirrup Cay, which is undergoing a massive transformation right now. Located in the Bahamas, NCL's private island will offer new experiences like a 1.4-acre pool, swim-up bars, and a kids' splash zone. Plus, anyone who visits next summer will experience the all-new Great Tides Water Park, which will have 19 water slides and a dynamic river.
Oh, wow. Oh, we love those. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. I know you're on a tight schedule. Anything else you'd like to, tell our listeners?
Yeah, so, I wanted to say we talked about those new ships. One of the ones that I'm super excited about is Norwegian Luna, which makes its debut next March. And this ship, as you mentioned, it's a little bit like a floating city in that it's loaded with features. So it's got things like the longest and fastest slides at sea. It's got 17 restaurants, 18 lounges, and so much more.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, some of these, oh my gosh, I can't wait. And so we're actually looking to book. So I'm really, really excited. Where can my listeners find more information and how can they book?
To talk to real cruisers just like you, visit cruisecritic.com and to find out more about the destinations, the itineraries, and the ships that I talked about. And to do some booking, you can visit ncl.com.
I love you. There's so many choices, but, it takes, people like me that's been on a few of them to go, okay, I really like this one. This was good. Like I said, our last cruise was on Norwegian, and we're definitely doing it again. So thank you so much, Colleen. Oh, my gosh, Colleen McDaniel, thank you so much. Can't wait to have you back.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Have a great one.
You too. 1-877-Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So years ago, we did the Dr. Dahlia cruise. And those were pretty popular. It was before COVID. And where we would pick a destination, most people wanted Alaska. So we ended up doing Alaska, and it was great. They gave us a great deal, so it was discounted for our listeners, and it was the dinners. And in fact, the captain ate dinner with us, which was really, really cool. So they gave us a lot of, so I'm working on that. I haven't set that up yet because it's, it's really hard when your show is national because there's so many people that want to go then. But I'll let you know if we're going to work on that because the Dr. Dahlia Show cruise was a great value, and it was and I didn't get the money, the cruise lines did, but they threw in a lot of extras, and that's great. But it sounds like these things are pretty. They're already advertising a lot of extras. A big issue I had years ago was the Wi-Fi, and like I said, it wasn't until I went on Norwegian when I could feel like I had that. I was able to access. And now, oh my gosh, it's gotten so much better. And these excursions are awesome. In fact, one thing that I really like when we were in Alaska is we wanted to fish. I mean, if we're going to Alaska, we want to fish. So we were able to charter a boat out of Juneau. I don't know if many of you remember, there was a picture of hubby with a 70-pound halibut. And that was a tough one. I mean, I was in a whole, fibromyalgia flare up after trying to, get that sucker on the boat because he was fatiguing. That was heavy because it's not just 70 pounds. You're angled. You're also dealing with water, so they're heavier in the water. And then there's a fight, of course. And we got it, and they were able to help us fillet it. And then we had halibut for a year. It was fantastic. And then we went salmon fishing off of, I think, Ketchikan. And so there's a lot of things you can do, and a lot of things these cruise ships can set up. And what I also really liked is the kids were happy. Now, I mean, when you have kids, I'm bored, I want to do this. And what's nice about the cruise ship is there's always something. There's a kids club, there's the water pipe, slide, the parks, all that, and then the food. My kids actually, they didn't like the sit-down dinners. They loved where they could just go up to the buffet and that they could go and pick what they want. And they, we're from Vegas, so we know buffets. And the buffets on the cruise ship was really, really nice. And also what I liked about some of these rooms is they have like bunk beds for the kids. So if you did have to get, like, if the kids are young and you want them with you, that's great. But now that the kids are older, by the way, another thing that I would look into too, which we're looking into, is sometimes if you go as a family of 4 versus 2 families as 2, there's a difference in price. So if they have some of these deals where they say second person is free, you might want to, if you have adult family members, book it separately, where those 2 book their own, which would be nice if my kids paid. But think about it. If they get their own room, second person free, you actually get an extra person free. So I haven't looked into that. But there's some ways to, really, really save. 1-877 Doc Dolly. Don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles, along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc and Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So what many of us don't understand is why we still haven't gotten any clarity or any more information on who this Thomas Crooks was, this little punk that apparently knew enough maneuvers like bear crawling and how to bring a gun to a rally in Pennsylvania where President Donald or the former President Donald Trump was campaigning to be next president, and how this young punk was able to, on his own, manage, the possible assassination of President Trump. And we still don't know a lot about what's going on. This happened in Butler, Pennsylvania on July 13th, 2024. So here we are. I mean, it's been, 5 months, but we just don't know much. He was able to get 8 shots out with an AR-15 style rifle from a rooftop in a nearby building. In fact, kids saw him before Secret Service did or police did. He ends up killing somebody in the audience, a firefighter, as well as injuring 2 others. And thank God Trump turned his head. In a way, our immigration crisis caused by Biden saved Trump's life, because as he was turning to a graphic that showed such stark numbers, he was looking towards the graphic. He turned to a degree that probably ended up causing the bullet to hit his ear instead of his head. And it was a miracle that he was able to live through this. You know, I'm watching, and you see him jump to the ground. You see him grab his ear. He could have died. And when you look at this kid, and then of course you have, some people out there just, martyring him and saying he's a hero. It's sad. It's really, really sad that that's how people think. Their hatred of Trump is that bad where they're going to lose any, sign of humanity. But apparently Tucker Carlson he's gone off on a lot of weird things, and I'm not really happy with his anti-Israel stance at all. However, he looked at Crook's digital footprint, and apparently there were a lot of things that he tried to surmise out of this. And so some of this information we're getting is not from the FBI, but it's from Tucker Carlson. Not sure how he got that advice or that evidence, but he did. And so Thomas Crooks apparently was linked to accounts called Epic Microwave and The Epic Microwave on the website DeviantArt. Apparently this website hosts sexually explicit images of furries. Now, furries are human-like animal characters for people that have, I guess, an attraction to that. And we're not talking, Catwoman was sexy. We're talking about how they have an attraction to furry animals. And they say that Crooks used pronouns they and them, used by the transgender community, and his activity suggested an interest in cartoon characters with very strong male physiques and female heads. We have to be really, really careful with those types of revelations, because there's many individuals who, are transgender that are sweet as can be and have no criminal desires at all. But you do wonder, if somebody is lost and trying to find ways to deal with their demons, and they, do they have, behavior that might look like antisocial, where they, just want to light up something and put it on fire, or do they, start to have, struggle with relationships, and do they go to other relationships to try to find where they belong? And so many people do look at, where we are in terms of being there for support. If somebody is feeling that they're in the wrong body, how angry are they? And most transgender, individuals are, as I said, sweet as can be. I've never met a violent transgender individual, and I have a transgender individual in our extended family. But if some individuals with transgenderism are really waking up every day trying to claw out of their body, say, this is not my body, I got to change it. And then they get very disillusioned because they're not going to look like Beyonce, or they're not going to look like Dwayne Johnson when they're done with the transitioning. And they feel that they are already set to fail, because we're promising, well, we'll make you a girl, we'll make you a boy. And so it is something that we do have to look at. Where is the support for these individuals? Telling somebody who has gender dysphoria, who says, I'm in the wrong body, the answer isn't, well, let's just change your body and cut it up and use hormones. The answer is, why do you think you're in the wrong body? What are you feeling? What are you tackling? What's challenging you? And what is, making you feel this way? And we don't want to force them, to be one way or another. But look at these kids saying, I'm gay, mom and dad. And they go, no, you're not. We're going to send you to gay conversion classes. You can't sit and force and medicate somebody to be something they're not. So I'm not really sure what Thomas Crooks went through in terms of that. But apparently, Tucker Carlson said that he didn't act alone, or is suggesting that, which I don't think. I don't think he's acting alone. Somebody taught this kid how to do this. That there was some training. How does somebody not get discovered by cops and Secret Service, know which building wasn't covered? This kid, some punk, how did he know? Anyway, they said he was in contact with a Norwegian national who was allegedly part of the neo-Nazi terrorist organization. Now, the FBI has said Crooks acted alone. No evidence of co-conspirators or foreign direction. Although there was some statements that came out in terms of there were, they did pick up before this that Iran, wanted to assassinate the president, and there was, anti-Iranian sentiment towards the president. With this, they immediately ruled that out. But how did he do this by himself? Tucker Carlson released a 34-minute video that uncovered YouTube comments allegedly posted by Crooks from 2019 to 2020. And during the final phase of 2020's Crooks YouTube commenting, the shooter began interacting with a suspicious user called Willie Teeps, who appeared to encourage Crooks to commit political violence. This is being reported by Daily Mail. He wrote to Crooks on August 4th, 2020, if a gun and a badge is all that is needed, then authority obviously comes with a barrel of a gun. We have more guns than they do. He says there is no way we can avoid a war at this point. You just better get used to the idea. Now, Tepes's name was listed on a foreign Antifa website, connecting him to the Nordic Resistance Movement, a neo-Nazi group based in Scandinavia, which has been designated a terrorist organization by the State Department. Now, the FBI hasn't necessarily, commented on this, I don't believe. This can definitely open up a whole new rabbit hole, but we do need to be aware of who could be plotting, and I'd like to find out how they got a hold of this kid, and if it was through YouTube or through sexually explicit sites or through how did this kid get trained? How and maybe he just naturally knew how to do all this. Maybe he studied it online, and they could look and see how to bear crawl, how to manage your AR-15 and sneak it in when there's high security. How to locate a building that the Secret Service didn't sweep. I mean, I am sure that when you look at Charlie Kirk shooter and who he was engaging with, we got to be very, very careful, because I know a lot of people are going to be bringing up, well, it's the transgender community. The transgender community is not violent, but us not treating people who could be struggling properly could cause some of their mental anguish to turn into mental illness, and we want to make sure that they don't feel that violence is the only way for them to relieve the suffering. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So SNAP benefits are under scrutiny because, as we saw with COVID benefits, sadly, there was some fraud, waste, and abuse of the system. And to ensure that every American family gets the nutrition that they need, when you have a entitlement effort, you want to make sure that those individuals who, one, need it, get it, and then two, they're using it for the right things. Now, I don't want to think that the average $292 a person for SNAP benefits is going to junk food. I want to make sure that $292 is going to fresh fish, chicken, whole grains, milk, eggs. So we're being told that the head of the U.S. Department of Agriculture is now planning to have everybody receiving SNAP benefits to reapply, which makes sense. I mean, you got to reapply for your insurance. You have to reapply each year for your Medicare. So for SNAP, they should be reapplying. Now, our Agricultural Secretary, Brooke Rollins, alleged that fraud was running rampant in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, saying 186,000 deceased men, women, and children in this country are receiving a check. Now, she said the data they got was from the red states. This is going on in 29 red states. She said, can you imagine when we get our hands on the blue state data, what we're going to find? So she said it's going to give us a platform and a trajectory to fundamentally rebuild this program, have everyone reapply for the benefit, make sure that everyone that's taken a taxpayer-funded benefit through SNAP or food stamps, that they are vulnerable and they can't survive without it. You qualify for SNAP if your annual income or your gross monthly income is at or below 130% of the federal poverty line. And I believe because people ask, well, what if they own a house? What if they own, their countable resources are limited to $3,000 for most individuals, $4,500 for those age 60 or older with disabilities. But I think you can own a house. I think you can own, I mean, they don't want you, homeless. This is just supplemental. This isn't to feed you your whole meals. This is to supplement what you're already getting through welfare and other things. But if 186,000 people that are considered deceased is getting this money, who's using their cards? Now, is the money not being used, and is it just sitting in a mailbox, or is a family member saying, well, the card is being replenished, so I'm just going to use it myself? And if that's the case, that's fraud. That's serious fraud. Now, they're not saying they're going to arrest anybody at this point for doing that. What they're saying is, you know what? Everybody has to reapply and be alive. And I agree with that. Now, the Agriculture Secretary did not exactly specify when this would happen. According to the New York Post, state SNAP administrators already require those receiving benefits to recertify the information as often as 6 months, with families expected to keep their income and personal information up to date. The thing is who's verifying that? Despite the regular recertification process, Rollins alleged that the program was quote-unquote corrupt, and that 120 Americans had been recently arrested for committing SNAP fraud. There was this bust that happened in Ohio. The case was a culmination of 11 months of investigative work into 17,000 illegal transactions that took place using SNAP benefits. So Rollins told Newsmax, these are the things that we are uncovering that for years no one has really ever dug into because the feds didn't have the system in place to do it, but we do now. She said the president has made this a priority and we will fix this program. And the thing is, how I look at it, having patients who needed SNAP, is I would love for them to get more than $292. But you can't start doing that without ensuring that the money's going to be there long term. This is the problem with Medicare and Medicaid and all the other issues we've been having. We're being told there's not enough funds. There's not enough funds. So whenever there's not enough funds, the first thing you do is, are we wasting the funds are funds getting wasted or going to the wrong individuals? And that's a great way to, one, salvage. I'm running out of water in the water heater. Is there a leak? Look for the leak and then address the leak. But, it's interesting because I know that, with the big, beautiful bill, there were a lot of critics saying that the Republicans should not be asking for able-bodied men and women with no kids, no medical conditions to go back to work or volunteer or go to school 20 hours a week, part-time even, in order to get their benefits. And people were really upset about that. And I'm like, why? Well, because they're disabled. I go, no, these are individuals not disabled. Those with disability are on Medicare. Right? They are talking about Medicaid recipients who are able-bodied. Why are they getting it? They have to prove that they're working, because again, you don't work, you become more isolated, you become more poor. So, and if we're running out of funds, shouldn't we try to ensure that those people who really need them and deserve them get them? 1 in 8 Americans are requiring SNAP benefits. 1 in 8. Why is 12.5% of our population in poverty? We're supposed to be the richest country in the world. So either A, it's not 1 in 8 people, or B, we have a big problem. And if we do have a country where all these people are in poverty, then we need to ensure that we get them out of poverty. Well, you know what? Let's get them into work. Let's get them a job. Let's get them out of poverty. Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? So I don't understand all the criticism of that. To me, as a doctor, it makes sense. I told you, when we deal with workers' comp injuries, we always get them back to work the next day, even if it's just part-time duty, because the longer they're out of work, the harder it is to get them to go back. And they end up improving and feeling better, keeping to their schedule, as long as they're not, in pain and needing surgery. The 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, don't go away. Hey guys, it's Dr. Dahlia. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So the illegal betting scams and the sting operation that happened a few weeks ago that involved some NBA basketball players and the mafia, and it was a huge operation that Kash Patel and the FBI unveiled. It's not over yet, and we knew when we heard that there were some issues with people possibly throwing games or being injured and either keeping it from people or just saying they're injured and then leaving the game. This could really affect the under. It could really affect prop bets and other things that people bet on. And, I was asked, what are we looking at here? How much money, are these sports books and, what sort of revenue we're looking at? Well, according to the American Gaming Association, sports betting revenue reached a record $13.7 billion last year. That is a 25.4% increase from 2023. Now, part of that increase in sports betting, now people have always bet on sports. They bet on horses and games, etc. But you used to have to, go in, put your bet down. You didn't have an app. So you were really limited to either just sitting and camping out in the sports book or going to put your bet, go home, and then later come back and try to collect on the money. Now, sometimes, people forgot to collect or they didn't know they won. They turned off the game because they saw that, it was, like the Falcons, were ahead. So Falcons were ahead, so we're good, whatever. And then you find out later they went to overtime, and then they lost. So I think the Jaguars they played this week. So but that wasn't a lot of revenue that they lost because most people, if they had a winning ticket, they were going to cash that in, and you stood in line and you got your money. Now with these apps, you get the money almost instantaneously into your account. You set up an account, and then you bet. And so if you do win, I sometimes like to bet on the over. And it's amazing how once the team makes the over, that money within seconds is in my account. Now, when you lose, you lose. And in fact, when you make the bet, the money's already withdrawn. So you have no access to that. Once you make the bet, the money's, like, let's say you do a $5 bet and it's a negative 110 or whatever. You end up getting maybe $4 and I don't know, 50 cents, whatever, on that win. And so or whatever the math is. So they take that $5 away. And then if you do win, you get, or maybe it's a $10 bet or whatever, $9 then you get. Then it'll give you that money back with the bet you made. So it looks like, wow, I just made an extra $20. Well, no, you got the $10 or the $9 bet plus the bet that you made originally. And so while you're on these apps, you start watching the games. I don't like to bet before the game anymore. And I don't really recommend betting. My father was a gambler, and so I don't gamble a lot. I really don't like it. I'm kind of really biased because I saw what it did to my father. But every now and then I'm watching a game, and I'm like, okay, they're going to hit the over, or they're going to cover the spread. And then I will mid-game put some money on the game. And that has been my most successful betting than how I used to do it, where I'm like, okay, yeah, the Niners are definitely going to win. Now, the Niners did win this weekend, but I've done that where it's going to be the Niners, then I don't understand, or I don't take into account that Brock Purdy's not coming back because he's still injured or whatever ended up happening that week. So the people are really, really liking being able to have sportsbook access from their couch. And people are dropping hundreds of dollars on a single game. And so you are already very vulnerable money-wise. But to think that there could be some setups or some rigging, you're already prone to losing because the casino always wins in the long run. Yeah, some people win and they might, get a royal flush, or they might hit black 17 on roulette, or they might get their craps, payload. But the most of us, we always lose to the casino always has an edge. Well, now the edge changes if you also have players manipulating things. And interestingly, the NBA is now going to be confiscating cell phones from the Lakers. There's apparently an investigation into more illegal gambling schemes. According to Fox News, the NBA is reportedly seeking all cell phones and other property from multiple teams as part of their investigation. Los Angeles Lakers assistant trainer, LA Lakers, Mike Mancias, and executive administrator, Randy Mims. They're close with LeBron James, but I don't think LeBron James has anything to do with this. But these two individuals have reportedly already cooperated in handing over their cell phones to the outside law firm Wachtell, Lipton, Rosen, and Katz, which has been contracted by the NBA to help carry out the investigation. And good for the NBA looking into this. According to the NBA spokesperson, the NBA engaged an independent law firm to investigate the allegations in the indictment once it was made public. As a standard in these kinds of investigations, a number of different individuals and organizations were asked to preserve documents and records. Everyone has been fully cooperative. Now, the NBA is already kind of in the midst of this, in the thick of it, because of the indictment of Portland Trail Blazers coach Chauncey Billups, Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier, and former NBA player and coach Damon Jones for their alleged roles in a quote-unquote criminal gambling scheme. And then Congress got involved when the House Committee on Commerce Friday sent a letter to NBA Commissioner Adam Silver requesting information and a briefing to obtain information related to the scandal. The bipartisan letter was signed by 6 members of Congress on the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, both Democrats and Republicans. So They want to know about details of fraudulent, illegal, alleged betting practices in connection to NBA players, coaches, and officials. And then you also wonder, well, what about NBA? Or the Major League Baseball, MLB. There's been some news with them as well that I'm trying to pull up right now. And so, these micro bets, parlays, prop bets, and there's been now a quote-unquote integrity crisis that ESPN is talking about as Congress is now looking at Major League Baseball. Members of Congress sent a letter not only to the NBA, but also the Major League MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred, expressing concern over integrity. And, I tell you, I've been watching games where I'm like, okay, they're going to make the over. And then, the team just decides we're just not going to score. Now, I understand protecting your players. We're just going to run the ball, or we're not going to do too many, hoops. We're going to, play our first string, or we're going to rest our first stringers, let the second stringers play. I get that, which are things you do need to kind of take into account if you do ever bet. And I don't want to give people advice on betting. That's not what this show is. But there's a lot of mistakes I see people make. And so I don't mind, telling you not to make mistakes because I don't want you to lose money and fall into a depression, which a lot of people do. But, to guard against somebody faking an injury or somebody saying, hey, guys, I'm not going to play past the first quarter of the NBA game. There's 4 quarters, 12 minutes each. I'm not going to play past the second one. So if you're doing prop bets on me alone and the points I'm going to score this game, I pick the under. I mean, these are things that then change the whole rules. And the people that get that insider information are, going to make money. Well, that's a felony. You can't do that. So those individuals going, oh, yay. I'm going to, and I don't want to name any particular player, but, I'm going to bet on him. I know he's going to be, shooting the most hoops. He's easily going to make 50 points this game. And now you're screwed. And what we don't want is somebody looking at these games going, it's fixed. Something's not right. It was interesting. The Runnin' Rebels back in the 90s won. They went to the championships twice. The first one they won. They played Duke both times. It was 90 and 91. During the second game, there was a lot of talk going, I don't understand. They didn't play like they usually do. Now, I was thinking injuries, but other people were saying, no, there's something else. I'm like, no. There's no way. If you're in the national championship and you have the ability to win twice, you're going to do it. You're going to, but when you start hearing people question the integrity of the game, that really starts to, you have, and it's very interesting because now we have football fans, basketball fans, and Dodger fans that we used to not have. That's sports. Let's just let the guys do their things. I was always into sports. And so, but now, I mean, you really have, I mean, you it's not just a guy thing. I mean, women are huge sports fans, and you see as many women, if not men. And it's exciting. I love sports. It's thrilling, and it's free. You turn on the TV. I mean, if you pay for a sports package, that could be costly, but it's free. It's free entertainment. One of my favorite things to do on a Sunday is guys potluck. So just bring whatever. Kids can play. We have football in the background. But, they do need to get a hold of this gambling problem, because now that people can throw a bet anytime they want, and or put a bet down, and then somebody could throw a game or that's a problem. 1-877-DOC-BELLY. Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So remember about 10 years ago, they were advancing sex robots where people could have companions later. We knew that the loneliness crisis was going to grow, where actually people were preferring to not be with humans, and they were like, oh, okay, this sex robot won't talk back. Well, not, I don't know. Do the wrong things, I'll do what I like, whatever. And I'm not sure where that market is going, but I've been watching the senior care market. And there's robots and AI robots that are already being prototyped to help with seniors. And this is something that is going to become huge, where, an elderly person can have a robot in their house that can alert the paramedics, can get a hold of a family member, could help them from a loneliness perspective. So my question to you is, if you age and you age to the point where you don't want to be alone, will a robot do the trick? For me, I'd say, yeah, I'm totally fine with the robot, because I don't want to order my husband around any more than I already do. And so, I try to give my husband very little to do. But if there's some things I can't do, I need you. And I think he wants to feel needed, but not too much. And so if it's something where, look, I can't pick that up, or I think I spilled something, I don't want to slip, I just mopped the floor, you could use the robot to do that. Now, I have a dog. We just adopted a new dog, and I call her Snort. I know her name is Vaughn. Oh my gosh, I don't know what they named her. Oh, Beignet, Vaughn, Chunk the Third. I don't know what they, but anyway, I call her Snort. And apparently she doesn't, like to really go out the dog and don't go pee-pee, especially since it's been raining. So I run up the stairs, and then I almost slipped because she decided to do her pee-pee right by the stairs to show me, look, I know you wanted me to go outside, so I didn't pee-pee in your room, but I wanted you to know that I went pee-pee so you don't make me go outside in the rain, because I already did my pee-pee. I go, duly noted, right? Now I'm getting off the ground. I'm trying to clean up pee-pee that shouldn't be there. So it'd be great if I could have a robot run into the room or go up the stairs, although they're not at that. I don't think they have that ability. Stairs are a little difficult. So let me tell you about what, some of these robots can do. According to AI Insider, there is Japan is pioneering an elder care robot. They started this with a subsidy 10 years ago. And they use these doll-sized robots to lead songs and games. Others have sleep monitoring sensors. In fact, Waseda's University RX has introduced a humanoid robot that weighs 150 kilograms, so over 300 pounds, that can turn bedridden patients to prevent bed sores, even help cook meals, moving beyond just companionship. This is being reported by AI Insider. Now, these prototypes cost around $67,000. Developers expect adoption by 2030. So a big issue that some bedridden patients have is in the nursing community, they need to move the person, shift them, make sure they're not getting bed sores, because the longer you're lying in one area, the more you could, you break down the skin, it's not getting air, and that's really traumatizing. A lot of nurses, can't have a lifelong easy career because they have so much musculoskeletal wear and tear from moving patients. So something like that can be huge, especially when it comes to bed sores and things like that. Paro Therapeutic Seal from ACE in Japan, they have a robotic seal. They use that as pet therapy for dementia patients. It actually sounds like a seal. That's interesting. Then there's a robot by Elic from Institution Robotics, where it's for older adults. It's being piloted in New York State with 800 seniors, and they initiate conversations, remind seniors about medication, even uses generative AI for natural interactions. And then Buddy by Blue Frog Robotics is a mobile companion robot that reminds elderly individuals about schedules, connecting them to family via video, providing entertainment. And then in South Korea, there's the Hayadol robot, which converses in Korean and recognizes emotions with the appearance and speech patterns of a 7-year-old child. So, one thing that people are thinking, well, I don't get that. Older individuals will get endorphins released being around kids that they like. Yeah, I know some people say, move me into a senior citizen community. I don't want to be around kids. But for most of us, the sounds of kids and the fun and the innocence and the cheer and the lack of being jaded, like a lot of adults. It's interesting. The conversations that the grandchildren have with their grandparents are much different than the conversations that the parents do with their parents. You're like mom or dad, no, but the the grandkids, her voice, and they're, anything grandma and grandpa says, it's like, wow, and so it's a different, you get a different response. And so this is why a lot of older people like to go to the park. They like to watch kids play. Kids are fun, to watch. And kids are, until I see a kid bully another kid, then I get, no. Then I, like, you leave that kid alone. In Sweden, 52% of cities are using robotic cats and dogs in elderly care homes. Now, this I would be interested in because my real dogs and cats do pee-pee house. So I would really, really love something that doesn't urinate in my house. A study in Linköping University noted caregivers report residents who had been nonverbal began speaking to robot pets, and anxious pets became calmer. So you had humans that didn't want to speak to other humans, but they would talk to the robot. So that's good. They're getting to open up. Ageless Innovation is using animatronic cats and dogs and birds to combat loneliness among seniors. Programs distributing the companion pets in hospice care, veterans facilities, and most recently to residents 60 or older in 3 DC wards. So this is being looked at, in all sorts of countries. China has launched a national pilot program to help deploy robots in homes, community centers, institutions to help with disabilities, cognitive issues, daily tasks. And they plan to test at least 200 robots and setting industry standards. So this is coming. So what are the benefits versus the risks? Okay, well, the benefits is if you could reduce some of the workload and you could prevent falls and you could prevent loneliness and isolation and you could improve their mood and you could remind them to take their medications and ensure they aren't over-medicating, that could be life-saving. And I think these things could be awesome. How many times did we forget to take a pill or not? And so being friendly and, integrating into daily routines and getting them on a schedule and safety, it's huge. However, there are a lot of concerns. There's ethical issues with privacy, autonomy, who's watching this older person. Is this a way for a country to be able to spy on them? Do these countries understand nuance human interactions? Do they understand that there's cultural differences? So in the Latino population, many of them would say to me in Spanish, "Tomé la medicina." I took the medicine like once. That was all I had to do. I'm like, no, usted tiene diabetes. You need to take the medication for your diabetes every day. This is not just a one-time thing and then you're done. And so in some cultures, it's, give me the mixture, give me the medicine, I'll take it, and then I'll go about my day. And this idea of the preventative care, and it's sometimes unique to certain cultures and certain communities. Now it's very, very, many, this was like 20 some years ago. Now, many, people understand, how we do medicine in America. So when we do have immigrants come in, they're understanding, but they still like botanicas. So if a robot says, what are you taking that for? Then that's a natural remedy they got at a botanica. You don't want the robot saying, don't be taking that. You got to take it, So they have to understand the nuances. Then the expense of these things. Also, I want to make sure they don't trip somebody up. Remember, there was a woman getting a laparoscopic hysterectomy, and the robot arm smacked her in the face while she was undergoing anesthesia. Okay, we don't want these robots to beat up on our elderly seniors, but I think it's interesting, and I would want one in the house. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out. All right. We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOCDALI. So every decade seems to have their, characteristic go-to theme. Like the 20s would be the flappers and prohibition and speakeasies and post-World War I, kind of boom in America type of thing. Although then at the end was the Depression. And then the 30s was a Dust Bowl and the Depression and not, Herbert Hoover and not the most exciting time. You don't really have a lot of people do 30s themed parties. The 40s were all about World War II. And then post-World War, 50s were more Elvis and rock and roll and, Eisenhower and the suburbia. Then the 60s was the Woodstock and Vietnam and the Hawks versus the Doves and Beatles. The 70s was like Saturday Night Fever. And I understand there's a lot more, that can describe these, but also the 60s, the assassinations of JFK and Martin Luther King. The 60s were very tumultuous. 70s, was their groovy talk, the bell bottoms, the pet rock, the disco music, Saturday Night Fever. The 80s was about Madonna and the bright colors and the spandex and the aerobics and Jane Fonda and the rock and roll, the metal bands and things like that. And then the 90s, one thing that I would characterize at the 90s was O.J. Simpson. Boy, did that, when you bring up the 90s, some people bring up the Menendez brothers. Some people will bring up, let me see, what else was like really big in the 90s? You had like a Saturday Night Live and the whole Adam Sandler, movies and Colt and the Wayne's World and the Beavis and Butthead. And I was in school, so I don't really remember much. But I got to tell you, it was Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton, the Menendez brothers, and O.J. Simpson. And I guess so the Ford Bronco would probably be also a thought that comes up in the 90s. And, the O.J. Simpson case, I didn't have a lot of time to watch, but I remember dealing with a patient. I was with a patient, working with them, and looking up on the TV, seeing the white Bronco on the 405 driving slow, and the cops driving slow, just following them. I'm like, wait a second, if that's a high-speed chase, is this in slow motion? And, seeing it from start to finish, and then, here's O.J. Simpson, who was a hero. Now being implicated in murder, double murder, which I didn't know back then, but later I'm like, I wonder if he had CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, like Aaron Hernandez from the Patriots, and, who ends up killing somebody, getting convicted for murder. And so, but, when we went through the trial, there was a lot of media sensationalism, because in the 90s they had Court TV, and they started to not stream online, but you would have channels that would all day long do. People were really excited about Court TV and watching court cases. and see, rather than just hearing what happened. And so a lot of people were watching the O.J. Simpson. And then Kato Kalin, who I think lived in the backyard, was in a casino in the backyard, and he had his long surfer dude hair. I remember people were kind of talking about him. And then I remember Judge Ito was the judge that was overseeing the case. And I was, I was at the hospital working, and I guess the late night show was doing their media tease, so tonight we're going to have so-and-so on, so-and-so, and the dancing Judge Itos. And I guess there were 3 Asian men dressed up like Judge Ito that would dance. And I guess this was a headlining act for one of the late shows. I mean, it really was a circus. And then we were watching how the defense protected O.J. Simpson. If the glove don't fit, acquit. And you see O.J. Simpson try on the glove, and he's like, it doesn't fit. And I don't know if it was shrunken leather or what. And so he ends up getting off. And we were shocked by this because we thought the evidence with the blood in the car and we thought that, Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, who died on June 12th, 1994, that it was, that the prosecution made an amazing case for that. And not that any of us want to see O.J. Simpson go to jail, but, we want justice. We don't want to think that, some fancy sort of defense tactics can, get a murderer off. Well, apparently the family was not happy with that, and he ended up going into civil court. And the civil court found him liable. This was back in 1997. And he had to pay $33.5 million in damages. Now, most of the judgment never got paid. O.J. Simpson died in April 2024 at the age of 76. He actually lived near us. My sons would see him, at nearby shopping centers and things like that. And he lived a pretty normal post Nicole Brown Simpson, Ron Goldman murder life until he actually, he was arrested for a sports memorabilia robbery thing. So that yeah. But apparently, let me see here. The family of the executor of the Simpsons estate, Malcolm Lavergne, had accepted the Goldman family's creditor claim of $57 million plus 30 years of accumulated interest, according to TMZ. And now the nearly $58 million sum has been negotiated with Goldman's family, and the estate plans to pay what it can by auctioning off Simpson's possessions, some of which they say, according to Fox News, has been stolen. And Lavergne now says he is working with attorneys to recover these items. He also said he would ask the court to approve an administrative fee for Goldman, who has assisted in managing estate affairs. Now, Lavergne said he has rejected most other creditor claims, accepting only those from Fred Goldman and the IRS, whose federal tax obligations will take priority. So apparently there's a $636,945 claim from the state of California, which apparently he has to address before that state takes legal action. So, I thought the Simpson family was still paying on a part of this settlement. I didn't think, and I know he publicly vowed not to pay the Goldman family, but the estate is going to finally get money for the wrongful death that happened over 30 years ago. I think he was the waiter that brought glasses back home to Nicole Brown Simpson, and they were apparently involved, and O.J. Simpson was allegedly enraged by that, and that's how he was found liable in the 1997 case. And, this changed the way courts, and I mean, we knew that there was an art to law. And you could have somebody who, allegedly committed murder. You could have all this evidence, blood, DNA, all that. But if anything happened incorrectly, either in the process, and it's like with football. You could have an amazing forward pass, but if there was a hold or anything the offense did, it negates it. It brings it back. And so you could have something that looks like it's obvious. It's murder. But if there was any process that was done by prosecutors, it goes back. It doesn't count. And so, seeing him that was just in the 90s, it was a shock. And it also made us doubt ourselves, going, well, maybe he didn't do it. The glove didn't fit. I mean, look at how that manipulated all of us. If the glove don't fit, acquit. Now, and it was cute to say. It was, I think people were, like wearing T-shirts with the glove. I mean, it became a circus. And at the heart of it is 2 people lost. Now, and I remember asking a patient, I go, if he didn't do it, who did? Are they going to go after the other person? And my patient said, no, they're not. Nobody else killed those 2. And I'm like, well, if the court said he didn't, and I think it just ended there. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, don't go away. Hey guys, it's Dr. Dahlia. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My Financial Fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.